Thank you, everybody, for being here. The time is now 12:40. The House Committee on Homeland Security and Public Safety will now come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Hefner,
Here.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Here.
Representative Canales, Representative Cortez,
Here.
Representative Isaac,
Here.
Representative Durazio,
Here.
Representative Lauterbach,
Here.
Representative McLaughlin,
Here.
Representative Holt,
Here.
Representative Pearson,
Here.
Representative Hicklin.
All right, a quorum is present. Thank you all for being here. We have, want to hear one bill here real quick, and then we're going to vote on some. You want to vote first? Let's go ahead and vote. We're going to vote some bills. So we have a quorum. We have 6 bills we're going to vote on today, or we're going to hear 6 bills today, but we have some pending business we want to attend to first. As a reminder, anyone wishing to testify before this committee, please register at the kiosk out in the hallways behind the hearing rooms, and if you need any help, just let my staff up here know, and we'll get you taken care of. Members, any remarks or anything y'all like to say before we vote a few bills here? All righty. Chair lays out as pending business House Bill 626 by Chairman Cecil Bell. Members, this is a bill we heard previously relating to granting limited state law enforcement authority to certain federal law enforcement officers. The chair moves that House Bill 626 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Hefner,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Canales, Representative Cortez,
Yes.
Representative Isaac,
Aye.
Representative Durazio,
Aye.
Representative Lauterbach, Representative McLaughlin,
Aye.
Representative Holt,
Aye.
Representative Pearson,
Aye.
Representative Hicklin.
All right, there being 10 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails.
You can if you want.
Chair lays out as pending business House Bill 668 by Chairman Cecil Bell. Members, this is the bill we heard previously relating to the renewal of a license to carry a handgun. The chair moves that House Bill 668 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it pass and be printed. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Hefner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Canales, Representative Cortez,
Yes.
Representative Isaac,
Aye.
Representative Durazio,
Aye.
Representative Lauterbach,
Aye.
Representative McLaughlin,
Aye.
Representative Holt,
Aye.
Representative Pearson,
Aye.
Representative Hicklin.
There being 10 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. Chair lays out as pending business House Bill 647 by Chairman Patterson. Members, this is the bill that we heard previously relating to the removal of certain restrictions imposed on driver's licenses and authorizing a fee. The chair offers a committee substitute. Is there adoption to any? Is there any objection to the adoption of this committee substitute? The chair hears none. The substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 647, as substituted, be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Hefner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Canales, Representative Cortez, Representative Isaac,
Aye.
Representative Durazio,
Aye.
Representative Lauterbach, Representative McLaughlin,
Aye.
Representative Holt,
Aye.
Representative Pearson,
Aye.
Representative Hicklin.
There being 10 ayes, 0 nays, the motion prevails. Chair lays out as pending business House Bill 674 by Chairman Spiller. Members, this is a bill we heard previously relating to the prosecution and punishment of certain criminal offenses committed in the course of or for the purpose of avoiding certain law enforcement checkpoints or evading an arrest or detention and increasing criminal penalties. The chair moves that House Bill 674 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Hefner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Canales, Representative Cortez,
Yes.
Representative Isaac,
Aye.
Representative Durazio,
Yes.
Representative Lauterbach, Representative McLaughlin,
Aye.
Representative Holt,
Aye.
Representative Pearson,
Aye.
Representative Hicklin.
There being 10 ayes, 0 nays, the motion prevails. Chair lays out as pending business House Bill 908 by Chairman Spiller. Members, this is the bill that relating to the reporting by law enforcement agencies of missing children to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The chair moves that House Bill 908 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Hefner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Canales, Representative Cortez,
Yes.
Representative Isaac,
Aye.
Representative Durazio,
Yes.
Representative Lauterbach,
Aye.
Representative McLaughlin,
Aye.
Representative Holt,
Aye.
Representative Pearson,
Aye.
Representative Hickland.
There being 10 ayes, 0 nays, the motion prevails. Chair lays out as pending business House Bill 658 by Chairman Tepper. Members, this is a bill relating to the carrying of weapons by Community Supervision and Corrections Department officers, juvenile probation officers, and certain retired law enforcement officers, and to criminal liability for taking a weapon from certain of those officers. The chair moves that House Bill 658 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Hefner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Aye.
Representative Canales, Representative Cortez,
Yes.
Representative Isaac,
Aye.
Representative Durazio,
Yes.
Representative Lauterbach, Representative McLaughlin,
Aye.
Representative Holt,
Aye.
Representative Pearson, Representative Hickland.
There being 10 ayes, 0 nays, the motion prevails. Members, that's all the pending business we have before us today. With that being said, we'll move on to hearing some bills here. Chair lays out, do you have it over here? Did I get this right? Oh, there it was. 1024? Yeah, I'm gonna get him first and then, because it's gonna be short. All right, chair lays out, chair recognizes Chairman Shaheen.
1024.
Golly, there it is. Chair lays out 1020, House Bill 10, whew.
Yes, sir.
Let me back up and start this over again.
Yes, sir.
I was in the middle of my script here. Chair lays out House Bill 1024 and recognizes Chairman Shaheen to explain his bill.
Thank you, Chairman Hefner, Vice Chair Lopez, and members. HB 1024 seeks to instruct law enforcement to execute as soon as practicable a warrant for the return of an individual who violates the condition of their parole and is being monitored under what's called the Super Intensive Supervision Program. Currently in Texas, there exists 3 different parole supervision tiers, and Superintensive Supervision Program, or SISUP, is the highest, reserved for the most heinous acts. So we're talking about murder. People are on parole who've been found guilty of murder, kidnapping, indecency with a child, sexual assault. These types of violations is what we're addressing today. The problem is that sometimes a warrant for a parole violator will be issued, but law enforcement may delay their response, which could place a victim at risk. This happened to a constituent of mine who had been assaulted. Years later, her perpetrator violated the conditions of his parole, and law enforcement did not respond to the warrant until the weekend was over. As you can imagine, time is precious when a dangerous individual violates their parole. A number of years ago, a state prison parolee ordered to wear a GPS ankle monitor, removed his device, and went on to a murder spree, murdering 3 different individuals and robbing 2 others. So HB 1024 seeks to prioritize these SISUP warrants to be served as soon as practicable and calls for increased attention to securing SISUP violators. This bill is a refile. It was passed out of the House 136 to 8 in the 87th legislative session. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions and reserve the right to close.
Members, are there any questions for Chairman Shaheen? All righty, we'll have you back up to close. We don't have any witnesses registered, so is there anyone wishing to speak on for or against House Bill 1024? If not, recognize Chairman Shaheen to close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I close.
All right, if there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there any
Members.
objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending. The chair lays out House Bill, let me back up. Usually I have a certain order that I go in, but I'm taking a bill out of order here to accommodate one of our agencies that may have other places to be, and so we're going to move forward with this House Bill 33. So the chair lays out House Bill 33 and recognizes Representative McLaughlin to explain the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for laying out House Bill 33, otherwise known as the Uvalde Strong Act. One thing I want to be clear with before I finish reading this statement, in no way, shape, or form is this bill transferring TDMs to a oversight of law enforcement in any shape or form. TDM is only going to be included in this bill is for helping develop policy and distributing that policy as they're the emergency management coordinators throughout the state. So I just wanted to be clear, there was some question that we were trying to put TDM in a position of law enforcement, and we're not trying to do that. As mayor of Uvalde, I witnessed the botched response to the tragic shooting at Robb Elementary on May the 24th, 2022. Arriving at the scene within the first 10 minutes, I was one of the first to witness the chaos that unfolded. Law enforcement hesitated, communication broke down, and innocent children and teachers were left defenseless. For 1 hour and 14 minutes, the shooter remained inside a classroom full of students, while nearly 400 officers from just about every law enforcement agency stood outside unsure how to act. Tragically, students and teachers died waiting to be rescued. The House Investigative Committee's report from that day confirmed what I saw firsthand. Chaos, unpreparedness, and an utter failure of leadership. I witnessed the confusion, the delay, and the tragic cost of hesitation when every second counted. That is why I'm here today bringing forward House Bill 33. We must overhaul our approach to school safety and active shooter situations. We cannot afford to repeat the catastrophic mistakes made during the response at Robb Elementary. Building upon the active shooter response improvements made by House Bill 3 during the 88th legislature, House Bill 33 codifies common active shooter response practices to establish a statewide emergency response protocol for all law enforcement and public information officers, eliminating any confusion across jurisdictions. The Texas Department of Emergency Management will develop comprehensive guidelines that outline recommended tactics and equipment, establish clear chains of command, create protocols for public communication, and standardized procedures for incidents, investigation, and reporting. With conflicting training and policies, law enforcement agencies don't always coordinate at Robb Elementary. That outright failed. It is critical that we have all responding agencies come together to ensure coordination and readiness. Under this bill, local governments will be required to participate in annual multi-agency training exercises, biannual roundtable meetings with law enforcement to ensure a unified response during an active shooter incident or any other emergency. House Bill 33 would build upon current school safety measures by implementing security guidelines reviewed by TDM, DPS, and the Texas School Safety Center. Following these guidelines, school districts will be required to adopt the statewide active shooter response plan and maintain direct law enforcement communication systems. This bill ensures that all responders are on the same page and ready to act from the start. The safety of our children shouldn't be a question of who's in charge. It should be about how we all step up together. We owe it to the families in Uvalde and to every community in Texas to ensure that when tragedy strikes, we get it right. House Bill 33 ensures that we do. We're currently working on a committee sub that will incorporate suggested edits from the agencies that we have spoken to. These edits are minor and do not change the concept of the bill, but will allow agencies to work together in a more effective way than what we have already laid out. I am open to address any questions, and I yield the right to close.
All right, members, is there any questions for Representative McLaughlin? If not, thank you, Representative, and we'll reserve your right to close. This is your first bill, too, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, congratulations.
you get to the floor, buddy.
All right, Chair now calls Ian, do what? You want to go Colonel Martin? Sorry, Chair calls Colonel Freeman Martin, the Director of DPS. Thank you for being here, Colonel. We show you Richard as Freeman Martin, testifying on behalf of the Texas Department of Public Safety, and you're testifying neutral, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Chairman, Vice Chair, members, Mayor, Freeman Martin with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Of course, we're neutral on the bill. Here's a resource witness to answer any of your questions. We've met at length with the mayor about some suggestions to make the bill better. We've worked with the mayor very closely since May 24th of 2022, and we believe in his intent behind this bill and what he's trying to accomplish. We had some suggestions for improvement, some confliction with House Bill 3 that was previously passed, and some alert training that was passed to address issues of Robb Elementary. Of course, there's an ongoing prosecution we've been under an order from the district attorney not to release certain reports and information, so that still continues on 3 years later. I think some of that is meant to be addressed in this bill also with the required reports within 30 days. Some of it is I think you're going to hear from police chiefs and sheriffs. Some of this is a redundant type training, and some of it, Texas is just so big and so different from the rural counties to the urban areas, and without delineating some of the language of a population over 350,000 as House Bill 3 does, you get into a situation where if it's mandated training with all partners within a county the size of Harris County, it was a statement was made that you'd have to hold the meeting at NRG Stadium because there would be so many people involved in that, versus some counties where you might have 3 people attending the meeting. And so we work with the mayor on some suggested edits to the bill, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Members, are there any questions for the Colonel? Chair recognizes Representative Louderback.
Colonel, good to see you. Appreciate what you do. But Representative McLaughlin has filed this bill. It's got some duplication and different things that we're going to work through. He's been more than gracious to agree to work with all those things and come to a very acceptable bill where we're spending our time in law enforcement training appropriately and establishing the kind of communication that I think we all want in this state and are all working towards. So is that your understanding?
Yes, sir. And there have been so many improvements made just in the last couple of sessions. And alert, of course, is the gold standard, the national standard that we train by, and making that mandatory in that 16 hours and going through that training, and then building in some of the incident command structure in that is invaluable. And then requiring police chiefs and sheriffs to have that 31-111 additional training on command staff has been a huge improvement.
So we'll try to take this bill and increase communication and increase our level of efficiency. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here, Colonel Freeman. My question is really about what you had stated initially in your statement about having some concerns about the bill. Were those simply just duplications, or are there other concerns?
There were several. Some of the who's doing the training,
Okay.
and some of it's developing plans to train law enforcement. I think that's well established following Columbine, and then the improvements that have been made. I would hate to see somebody come up with training, anything other than stopping the killing, stopping the dying, which is very simple alert training, that has to happen on the front end. And that's one thing that did not happen at Robb Elementary. And so anything that distracts from that, that's, you have to start with the alert, and everything else falls behind that.
Thank you. We have to lean on your expertise in these areas. So we have duplications. Who's doing the training? Anything else?
There's several things that we made several pages of suggested
Okay.
edits to tweak. Some of those are, the sheriffs are elected by their constituents, and requiring them to go through PIO training and stuff like that. We can all have our PIOs trained statewide, but if something significant happens, we're going to be standing there in support of our police chief, our local sheriff, 9 times out of 10. There's a couple of times that didn't happen, and happened to be they were both in mass casualty events, Sutherland Springs and Uvalde. But normally, in 254 counties, and probably in 250 of those, the sheriff or the police chief is going to be the PIO, the spokesperson, and we're going to be there in support of them.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Members, any other questions? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Lopez.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here and providing your testimony and the work that you do out in the field. That's, without what you and your men and women are doing, our community would not be as safe as it is today. Can you just tell me a little bit about where in the timeline, from the time that an event happens, for example, let's use the Robb Elementary as an example. I mean, at some point, information is being, responses as quick as possible. Different criteria is being established. How many are there? Where are they? How many kids are involved, or how many people are involved? And at some point, there is a identification of what type of weapon is being used, right? Is it a small caliber pistol, or is it something much more damaging than that? Does that point in time, in that timeline, change the approach? And does this practice identify when that happens and what the appropriate response would be to any event? If you can kind of give me some ideas around that.
Well, several things. Yes, every situation is going to be different. As far as after the event and releasing the information, I was the regional director in charge of Sutherland Springs. It was completely different because the suspect was dead. The issue was, is there a continuing threat? Is there somebody that was working with him? So there was a sense of urgency to find out who this guy is, who he's linked to, social media, dump cell phones. We came together, DPS took the lead with the support of FBI, and within hours, we were set up on different residences in Texas. We had FBI running leads out of state, working with the military department, determine history, motive, all those things. Uvalde was a lot different. But are you talking about the response to the type of weapon that's being used in the crime itself?
Just generally, the idea is that there's a timeline, right, that starts from the moment the call happens, or maybe from the time that the first intrusion happens, all the way to the time that you feel that you have it under control. And there's a point in time in there where you have to identify, the type of, assault you're under, right? And
Right.
Does that deviate the scheme? I'm assuming that there's a point in time when you have to bring in more, more firepower, if you will, or more advanced offensive support?
It really doesn't. And there's so many different situations, but law enforcement, whether you're the first officer on the scene or the third officer, the training is the same. You got to run towards the gunfire.
Right.
You got to stop the killing, and you can't. No longer can you wait for a tactical team, with or without the equipment. That's what's required. That's what's expected, and we see that on a regular basis. It happens statewide. And there's, you hear about those. It doesn't make, big news. It's not national news because it happens every day in Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, where officers are running towards gunfire and they take out a suspect before he can shoot more people. It's different if you have somebody that's there early that puts out misinformation that leads to confusion. Officers, when we go through the training, it's very clear. And the more training, the better, and you learn and you learn and you learn. I think what leads to confusion sometimes is who shows up first on that scene. And In Texas, our sheriffs are the high sheriffs. They're elected, and we're there to support them. Police chiefs have a lot of authority, and traditionally in Texas DPS, when you show up, you're in support of the locals. If you show up on the first scene, you're the incident commander. You're it. It doesn't matter if you're a trooper, a game warden, or a ISD officer, whatever the case may be. But it's unusual that you show up and the elected sheriff or the local police chief of authority with jurisdiction is there. If that happens, we always defer to the highest ranking on the scene, the person with jurisdiction. It's very confusing. It's very unusual for somebody to put out misinformation, such as the suspect is barricaded. If you hear somebody say a suspect is barricaded and people are standing around, it doesn't matter you went through all this training and you're a former Special Forces, Navy SEAL, whatever the case may be. If the people that are in the leadership is standing, not acting like it's an active shooter, and then you hear those kind of comments, it creates to the confusion. There's already going to be chaos.
Yeah.
Law enforcement in Texas, we're working with the mayor on this also. It's very, we're fortunate. We get a lot of training because there's so many hoax, bomb threats, and active shooter calls coming in. We had one last week right next to the DPS office here in Austin that caused a massive response. But it's good training, but we got to figure a way to put a stop to those and hold people accountable for calling in these hoax. It ties up law enforcement resources that we don't have. But to answer your question, every situation is different. Normally, what you see are street level police officers show up. They run towards the gunfire. It happens here in Austin on 6th Street on a regular occurrence. The officers put their lives in danger for people that they've never met and don't know every day. Uvalde was it was an anomaly. It's hard to go back and look at how it happened and why everything happened. But you can see the officers were asking, what are we doing? What are we doing? A lot of them had the alert training, but they were getting conflicting information. It didn't look like an active shooter. They weren't treating it like an active shooter. You had a sheriff, an acting chief, and the police chief of the ISD there on scene, and it resulted in this long delay that cannot happen. Shortly after that, the director of the Department of Public Safety, Steve McCraw, put out a memorandum to all DPS troopers that no longer are you allowed to assume that there's not children in a classroom. That if they're shooting inside a school, the assumption is that the classrooms are full of kids until we can prove otherwise.
Yeah, prove it different, yeah.
And so we changed our tactic, but the training, the alert protocols did not change. It's just that, Texas DPS, I know some of us have family members that are in the department, and we have strict protocols and strict rules and stuff like that. Well, part of that is law enforcement in Texas, we all work together. So we fill the gaps, whether it's a big county, a small county. There's not a county that's too big to receive assistance or give assistance, or a county that's too small to provide assistance. So we're there to fill the gap in these counties, whatever it may be, but we're always working in support of our police chiefs and sheriffs. And so if you go against the sheriff, normally you're admonished and you'll probably be kicked out of the county, especially if you're wrong and the sheriff is right. So very nuanced. A lot of things that contributed to Valley, I think a lot of them have been addressed by the legislature. We have better tools, we have better equipment, we have mandatory training. The training has improved, the training has expanded. It took us, I think we've trained over 10,000 in alert training, just the department, separate and aside from what alert is doing in San Marcos. So there's been a lot of improvements made, and I know the mayor has great intentions with this bill, and we want to work with him to help it make it better.
Great. Well, thank you for your comments, and Chairman, thank you for allowing me to ask those questions. I think they're important to know.
Chair recognizes Representative McLaughlin.
Colonel, I just want to say on behalf of my community, thank you. But I mean, DPS has been there for 3 years in Uvalde. We had 36 officers of DPS the first year. Those officers went to our campuses, interacted with these kids and we still have DPS officers there today. And for that, I thank you, and I appreciate what y'all do.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Members, any other questions? Colonel, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do.
Sure.
All right. Chair calls Ian Maladina. I apologize if I butchered that pronunciation. Ian Maladina. All right. If they show up, we can come back to it. Chair calls Mark Escott. Mr. Escott, thank you for being here. We show you registered as Mark Escott, testifying on behalf of yourself and testifying for the bill,
It's really on behalf of the city of Austin.
on behalf of the
In
city of
support,
Austin.
yes, sir.
And for the bill. Okay, please proceed.
Chairman Hefner, committee members, I am Dr. Mark Escott, and I serve as the Chief Medical Officer for the city of Austin. And I'm here today to testify in support of House Bill 33, and I've submitted some backup materials. I'm an emergency medicine and EMS physician and currently oversee the EMS system for the city of Austin and for the Texas Department of Public Safety through an interlocal agreement. One of my duties with DPS is to also serve as a tactical physician with the Texas Rangers Special Operations Group. In that capacity, on May 24th, 2022, I was dispatched to respond to Uvalde, Texas for an active shooter incident. My colleague, Dr. Heidi Abraham, and I responded, arrived on scene at about 2 p.m., and worked to identify if there were any ongoing needs for our assistance. In June 2022, I was tasked by Director McCraw to complete a casualty analysis to determine if any of the deaths were potentially preventable. I reviewed the extensive material provided to me by the Texas Rangers and then convened an expert panel of physicians to prepare for the review of the autopsies, first responder reports, and medical records of the deceased victims. Unfortunately, after a year of waiting for the materials, they were not released. And the analysis process was ended by the district attorney on August 18th of 23. One of my major routine responsibilities is the investigation of clinical errors and near misses. And this involves a detailed analysis of events to identify a root cause and determine if the error involved a system error, a cognitive error, or both. This involves not only identifying the errors that occurred, but perhaps more importantly, discovering why they occurred. There has been extensive research on cognitive errors in decision-making, which is a routine component in analyses of critical incidents in other disciplines, like aviation, nuclear power, and manufacturing of chemicals, where errors lead to large-scale losses of life. It has also been indoctrinated into the medical field due to the estimation that medical errors lead to hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths a year in the United States. The challenge is that research and education related to cognitive errors in public safety has not been meaningfully addressed. Catastrophic mistakes involve diagnostic errors that often do not become apparent until it's tragically too late. Availability bias, anchoring bias, confirmation bias are among the factors routinely found as causes of errors in medicine and other disciplines, and undoubtedly are factors in public safety errors. In medicine, we research cognitive errors, we educate our clinicians about them, and we've developed techniques to avoid them, but we have not seen the same level of effort in public safety. I want to thank Representative McLaughlin for introducing this impactful bill, and I urge this committee to make a more profound and enduring impact by investing the resources needed to research, educate, and improve the decision-making in our public safety disciplines. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Members, are there any questions for this witness? Representative McLaughlin?
Doctor, meeting with you the other day, you showed your diagram, which this diagram is here. And can you explain that again? You do it better than I will.
Yes, sir, and this is really, page 3 really outlines how these events usually happen. It doesn't matter if it's medicine, it doesn't matter if it's another industry. But what we do as humans is we experience an incident, and then we go through a process of pattern matching. Does this fit with something that I know? Does it fit with a prototype that I recognize? If it does, then we start going down that path. Intuitively, we think, as we gather additional information, that what's going on might be something different than my initial impression. We think that we're going to gradually move in that direction of what is actually going on. But that's not at all what happens. What happens is we stay on the path of our initial impression until what we call a catastrophic moment, where there is overwhelming evidence that you are wrong, and you suddenly switch. That is one of the issues that we see routinely in medicine. It's one that was likely at play in this incident.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Well, I think you answered, you provided information from my previous question, because I guess that's what I was trying to drive at. I mean, as this timeline progresses in any incident, there are things that we make decisions on. As you explained, some goes back on just personal experiences. The other one goes on, well, how was I trained to react to this? And I have to be prepared to change along the way before it becomes a wrong decision and a catastrophic moment. So, I mean, how do you build that in relatively short order? I think it was, the testimony was that, you know, the first person on the scene is the one that's going to respond. He goes in, as they say, guns blazing, or certainly the effort blazing right forward to be able to stop the perpetrator. How does the assessment of that individual within this training, how does the assessment of that individual then transfer to the next person that shows up on scene that really has now command responsibility, and then the next person that comes up? I mean, the transitioning of what has been learned in the first, second, and third steps is vitally important, so we don't go down this path to get to a catastrophic moment. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that and
Sure.
make us all feel like we're heading the right? I think we are.
Sure. And again, there are so many commonalities with medicine and other areas of work. You know, the issue that Colonel Martin described, and I'm sure you'll hear from others, is that, you know, if you are the first person on a scene, you have a dual role. You have to address the issue, and you have to do a scene size up, sort out what you need, and you have to do both things at the same time. When additional resources arrive, then you have to do one of two things. You have to remove yourself from the heads down position. I'm focused on one thing, so that you can transition to a heads up position. You can take in additional information, analyze it, troubleshoot, and ensure also that the other people on the scene know what's going on, a shared situational awareness. That was obviously an issue here. It's an issue in a lot of these scenes. This is not an issue unique to this incident or to law enforcement or public safety. If you look at my slide 6 in there, this was a recurrent issue in the aviation industry. Review after review after review of airplane crashes. Well, they know what happened, the airplane crashed. But the why it happened was interesting. What they found in the cockpit voice recorders is that a subordinate who was not the captain detected an issue. There's a famous one that involved the plane going into the Potomac, where the co-pilot identified there was icing on the wings, and 3 different times said something to the captain to indicate that he was concerned about the ice on the wings. But what happened was mitigated speech because of the deference to authority. So the co-pilot never said, "There's ice on the wings, we have to remove the ice before we take off." So the airline industry, after seeing this over and over and over again, instituted a policy, which is escalating challenges. It starts with, I'm concerned about. Next step is, I'm uncomfortable with. Third step is, I believe this situation is unsafe. And if there is not adequate response, they are mandated to take control of that airplane. If we had a policy like this on May 24th, we might have a different situation. These are the kind of things, the human factors pieces, the cognitive science pieces, that we have to start sorting out in public safety. This is a largely unknown concept in the public safety space. And we need to change that, or we're going to see the same issues over and over and over again, which we've seen. You name a mass shooting, there are themes associated with the why the errors happened that have never been addressed.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Members, any other questions? All righty, Mark, thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Yes, sir. Chair calls Sheriff Brian Hawthorne. Good afternoon. a new sheriff. We show you registered as Brian Hawthorne, testifying on behalf of the Sheriff's Association of Texas and yourself, and you are neutral on the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Chairman.
Thank you, Sheriff. Go ahead.
Chairman, Vice Chair, Representative McLaughlin, thank you for the opportunity to go before you, and I especially want to thank Representative McLaughlin for giving us an opportunity to spend a little time in front of him a couple of days ago discussing the bill, and we're here to try and support everything he's doing with the bill and make it the best bill that we can come up with. I think it's important right up front. I need to say that I testified in the Senate hearing on Uvalde and also in the House hearing and then also last session. I think we can all agree it was absolute catastrophic leadership. All right, it was a failure of leadership. And what I'm not sure is whether we can legislate leadership. All right, and that's the issue that I think we have to make sure that we identify. Because exactly why we're here, I'm not sure. I understand it's all about the children. House Bill 3 last session that was filed by Speaker of the House Dustin Burrows. The sheriffs had a lot of input in it. We got involved in it. And we still have not even completed the training that established, working out the sheriff's meetings with the schools and the police chiefs and the fire departments. So we're kind of putting things on top of each other when we haven't finished what we started with HB 3. Obviously, improvement, we should always be here to improve. And so obviously if we can continue to improve and work off of HB 3, we need to. There are some concerns from the Sheriff's Association that we very specifically put a cap at 350,000 population counties on the sheriff's meetings because we just could not figure out how to actually put together that meeting. And even those counties that are 250,000 plus struggle right now trying to operate and perform those meetings. A smaller county like myself, where I sit with approximately 60,000, 55, 60,000, it's very easy for me to bring my school superintendents in, my chiefs, my fire chiefs. I even bring in my emergency management directors and try and discuss how we're going to handle a protocol issue. We discuss tabletop events, both live and actual, and also just a paperwork table event. I think a lot of the things that are in the bill are taking place now that we haven't given it time to see where it's going to go. Active shooter training, I will tell you, I don't think there's a police officer one in the state of Texas that doesn't believe that alert isn't spot on. It's extremely accurate, and alert just isn't one or two courses. I think it's important for everybody to know that there is a multitude of courses that alert holds. I recently, along with just about every sheriff in the state, and Sheriff's Association worked with the Police Chiefs Association to travel around to do the management part of alert, to discuss setting up command posts, how to handle media, and how to do all of those things that are putting into the bill. But I just don't want anybody to think that we're all standing around not doing these things, because these things are in play right now. And on the PIO side, I think it's real important for everybody to recognize, as you all are elected by your constituents, sheriffs are also. And I would venture to say that most police chiefs on this type of a catastrophic event, whether it's of a smaller or larger nature, the police chief's can probably do a lot of the PIO himself, and I can assure you every sheriff I know will want to do the PIO side of it. And so even in our new sheriff school, our leadership academy that we do for new sheriffs, we have a segment for PIO. And I've just got to be careful representing the Sheriff's Association that I'm not making a sheriff go to a PIO school every 6 months. So if you take somebody like myself that's now in my 13th year as a sheriff, I don't know what you're going to teach me on my 26th PIO school. So I hope that we can just kind of look at some of those issues and work through them. Annual and biannual events, they sound wonderful. But I got to tell you, it takes weeks for us to plan a tabletop event. and it especially takes weeks for us to plan an event where we are utilizing children and staging injuries and doing mass casualty evacuation. It takes weeks. So when I look at trying to put everything together in this bill, and I'm just trying to focus on my sheriff's office with my full 4 school districts, could be very labor intensive. And we just have to remember some of these sheriffs that I'm up here representing today only have a handful of deputies. We're not a Houston Police Department. We're not a Department of Public Safety. We don't have the personnel that we can just give up to do these mass casualty events. I still have murders and rapes and child abuse and all these other cases that I got to make sure continue to keep working. I just can't drop what we're doing to work on a tabletop event. I don't think there's a sheriff one that won't welcome the assistance of TDM to help them organize things, but I think there's a real fine line there. We just need to make sure that, because I've had the pleasure of working with TDM a lot because I'm a coastal county. Just about every sheriff that's a coastal county finds themselves working with TDM just due to hurricanes and floods and what have you. And there's not a more professional group that I don't like sitting back and working with and having conversations and learning from, because there's a lot that can be learned from them. But I think everybody needs to realize the role that the sheriff has and that a police chief has, and we don't have that ability to drop what we do to spend weeks preparing for this catastrophic event. We have to figure out how to prepare for this catastrophic event in small increments of training. And Alert allows us to do that, so I hope we can continue to work through it. I especially want to make sure that I'm here representing the 90 sheriffs that have a population in their county of less than 10,000. And if they have a population of less than 10,000, they don't have a lot of deputies, they don't have a lot of personnel that they can give up to send to training. And that's the biggest concern I have here representing the Sheriff's Association.
All right, members, Representative Louderback.
Sheriff, I appreciate what you do. I think the main goal here for Representative McLaughlin is to, and he may have noticed some things that are bothersome to him on the communication and the challenges that law enforcement has on multiple agency communications. So I think the bill is an effort to, and he can certainly comment on this, but the main goal of this is to continue to evolve, continue to work on. I think this committee is probably well-versed in the challenges that we have on training, the personnel issues, the systemic loss of personnel that we have to deal with on a regular basis every day. So all those things combined, I think the real goal here is just to maintain it. He may have observed some things that are a little bothersome on the different attitudes about maybe the school district police with the PD there and the SO there, and in agencies across our state. We've had little issues like this before, and I'm sure you'll agree with me about that.
Absolutely.
And they're just challenges, and we've got to overcome them. Got to overcome them for the state of Texas and our citizens. And so this bill is really a combination bill to try and keep that going and facilitate that conversation over and over. I think that's what it is. Appreciate what you do, and thanks for being here.
No, thank you.
Representative McLaughlin.
Yeah, Sheriff, I mean, I would agree with what Sheriff Lauderback said there. The whole deal of this is to open up the lines of communication, because that was the failure that day. I mean, and what I want to see is these officers and these agencies talking with each other and working together, not against each other. More of a we instead of a me attitude. And I mean, that's coming forward as you speak. I mean, most of the training that would be required in this bill, y'all are already doing. We realize that. It's just make sure that everybody's on the same page and you're communicating. That's all our intent is here.
Well, I would tell you this, Representative, obviously your heart is in it and it's in the right place. I know that the police chiefs and the sheriffs would love really get into some dialogue with you. We feel like we can really help you because there are a few things that I have identified myself as we put our sheriff's meetings together. But I just don't want anybody to think that things aren't in the working. I mean, and we haven't even gotten through the training cycles that are required for alert yet. So from a Sheriff's Association perspective, we're neutral on the bill, and we would like to continue to work with the author to make the bill easy and adjustable for everybody.
Sure, and we're open to work with you.
Sheriff, there could be an opportunity. I just completed my active shooter training alert, and so very good training. But it may be a good opportunity for July for Representative McLaughlin to have a little class at the sheriff's conference. That would be a good thing for him, maybe to consider, and continue to work on the challenges that we all face.
Absolutely. In fact, obviously, Sheriff Louderback knows, and I know the chairman knows, I'm retired from the Department of Public Safety, and I've been the sheriff for 13 years now. And some of the best training that I have been to in my 41-year career was the alert leadership management training that I went through that Chief Stan Stanridge taught. It was probably some of the best training I've ever had. So alert's getting it done. The police chiefs are getting it done. The sheriffs are getting it done. And if we can do things to make it easier and more refined, we're very open to that.
All right. Sheriff, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman.
Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Chair calls Greg Stevens. We show you registered as Greg Stevens, testifying on behalf of the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and you're neutral on the bill?
Yes, sir.
All right, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Representative McLaughlin, appreciate y'all having me today, members. I'm Executive Director with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and as all of you guys are aware, we're responsible for ensuring that all Texas law enforcement agencies across the state meet a minimum standards, and that every Texas peace officer, whether they're full-time, part-time, reserve, that they meet minimum training standards. And so with that, we look forward to working with Representative McLaughlin and all of the stakeholder groups that you've already heard from and several others out there, working with them on recommendations for law enforcement agency policies and training standards. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that I might be able to.
Members, any questions? Representative Louderback.
Commissioner, appreciate what you do, and you play a huge role in the certification of all Texas peace officers, or all certified Texas peace officer, and you're also responsible for all the training that's required. So maybe if you touch a little bit upon, for the committee, the extensive challenges to our law enforcement community, exactly what a training cycle looks like, based upon a little bit about their personnel and the problems we're having with personnel, and some of the challenges that make it really difficult. And as we struggle year in and year out to get people to those classes and still maintain exactly what we're supposed to be doing in our law enforcement role. If you touch on that just a little bit.
You bet, Sheriff. So as the baseline standard, every law enforcement officer across the state must get 40 hours of in-service or continuing education every 2 years. After the last session in Senate Bill 1852, I believe it was, that added on, and it comes on the heels of Uvalde, that every Texas peace officer must now get also 16 hours of active shooter, or really active attack training, because these incidents can often be something besides a firearm. It could be an attack with any other kind of weapon. So 16 hours of active shooter training through alert. And in addition to that, I think something that was realized is that we have a lot of peace officers that actually hadn't been through or didn't have correctly recorded the alert level 1 training. So working with Senator Flores, we wanted to make sure that by the end of the 2-year cycle that ends August 31st of 2027, that every Texas peace officer throughout the state, again, whether you're a state trooper, a game warden, a city police officer, a sheriff's deputy, fire marshal, doesn't matter. If you hold a Texas peace officer license, you must have had alert level 1 training, which is the foundational training, by August 31st of 2027. And so we engaged with DPS, we engaged with alert to make sure, because that's a heavy lift. You're talking 80,000 peace officers that we have to get through. One, there's 16 hours every 2 years, but also there's tens of thousands of officers that haven't had recorded that alert level 1 training. And so to Sheriff Hawthorne's point, that's a big lift on the smaller agencies because it requires travel for what is a 2-day class. That alert level 1 is a 16-hour class. And we've made great progress in that. We'll meet that deadline, and I think we'll get it a lot sooner than August 31st of 2027. I don't have those numbers for you, but I can certainly get where we are. If you're interested in that, I can get that for you. So that's one of the big things that we're working on. And to your point also, Sheriff, I don't know you're going to have too many agencies come up here and tell you that, hey, we're fully staffed. We're good. We're not even doing any recruiting right now. That's rare. Every agency across the state they're hurting for people. For whatever reason, it's different than when I started in the early 90s, where if you didn't make a 90% on the entrance exam, you didn't stand a chance. 400 plus people showed up in Lubbock, Texas for 10 positions. And that's completely flipped now, where you have a couple of hundred show up for 30, 40 vacancies in an agency the size of Lubbock. And so everyone's struggling to get people on the street, even small agencies. And so to the sheriff's point, it's very difficult when you have to do 2-day trainings or 3-day trainings. But we all know how important that is, especially when it comes to this type of stuff. And another, I think, to the sheriff's point and what Colonel Martin had talked about, and what I'm going to use doctor, I'm not sure if that's correct, the one gentleman that testified, the criticality of that training is that one decision that's got to be made: have I come up on a situation that is stabilized, it is a barricaded gunman, or it is a hostage situation, or is it not stabilized and it is an active shooting situation? It's still active. There are still people dying. It is an active shooter situation, and that's the criticality. And the alert training really focuses hard on that, and they're doing a great job of making sure that every peace officer in the state, as best they can make that decision to respond correctly. And as Colonel Martin said, is stop the dying, stop the killing and then stop the dying. And that's the crux of the alert training. And they're doing a great job of that. And I think a lot of what I've seen in this bill, and again, we're standing by to work with you, Representative, and to work with all these stakeholders to make this bill good and to make it work well. Once that situation has stabilized and we're looking at the aftermath of it. But in the immediacy, I think alert is doing a great job. DPS has partnered with them, agencies across the state, to train every peace officer, no matter what, whether you're a school district officer, whether you are a game warden, whatever you are, so that you, if you're the first, second, or third person on the scene, can make that decision and determine, do I need to keep going because this is an active situation, people are dying, and I've got to stop the dying. I've got to stop the killing and then stop the dying. Yes, sir.
Agreed. Thank you, sir.
All right, members, any other questions for this witness? All right, Mr. Stevens, thank you for being here.
I appreciate all y'all are doing. Thank you.
That's all. Chair calls Chief Nim Kidd. We have him here as a resource witness. Same thing. We have it registered as Nim Kidd testifying on behalf of TDIM, testifying neutral as a resource witness. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Members, any questions for Chief Kidd? Just had you here as an in case, I guess, so.
As an in case.
Okay. Oh, Representative Hicklin.
So we've heard a little bit about some of the interagency communication issues. Could you possibly speak to areas that are included in this bill that TDM could offer assistance in bringing about clear collaboration in order to solve this issue?
Yes, ma'am, I think I can. So thanks for the opportunity. Again, my name is Nim Kidd, Chief of the Division of Emergency Management and Chair of the Governor's Emergency Management Council, of which 39 state agencies are a part of. Our job at the Division of Emergency Management is to support our local government partners, our mayors and county judges and sheriffs, and bring together a collaborative team, not necessarily in the discipline of law enforcement or firefighting or emergency medicine, but the goal to bring all of the local and state partners together to support and respond to a problem. And I've been standing in the back listening to the testimony. I don't disagree with any of it. I think law enforcement has taken tremendous steps as a community, and I spent 8 years in the Department of Public Safety as an assistant director there, and then 17 years before that with the San Antonio Fire Department. So I've got to see how we should all respond together. Law enforcement clearly has the lead role in responding to an active killing. Fire and EMS have supporting roles in responding to active killing. We do National Incident Management System training, as outlined by this legislative body, as our job and responsibility to do for state agencies and local governments. The law says today our job is to do after-action reports on major incidents and bring that information together, not because we're in charge, not because we have any specific specialty in any of the disciplines, but because we are aggregators and collaborators and working together. As some of the stuff that I've read in the original version, we do have today existing structures that allow any first responder to go and sign up for existing training and catalog and capture that training. But that should not compete with what TCOL does for law enforcement, nor what the Commission on Fire Protection does for firefighters, or the Department of State Health Services does for the emergency medical technicians. I do think one of the challenges is today you have 3 different governmental entities certifying 3 different disciplines that are going to the same disaster, going to the same scene. And I've been in this business 32 years. I think the first time I learned what the police officers and the EMTs were supposed to do on scene was when I showed up on my first scene. Nothing in my initial training as a firefighter told me what I was supposed to expect from law enforcement. I would probably bet nothing in your initial law enforcement training told you what you were supposed to expect from fire and EMS. You learned it the first time you got on scene. And so I think what the representative is trying to do is to bring those organizations together before, during, and after the event to provide a safer response for Texans.
Thank you, Chief. Members, any other?
Thanks, Chief.
Representative
Appreciate what you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Chief, thank you for, you good? Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Thanks for being here. That's all the witnesses we have registered. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 33? If not, the chair recognizes Representative McLaughlin to close on the bill.
Thank you. Members, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go off course a little bit here. Again, this bill is not to point fingers at anybody or anything. It's just to get the lines of communication open, because I can tell you as the mayor of Uvalde, a year and a half after this deal, we had a meeting for law enforcement to meet. We had law enforcement agencies that didn't show up. Not pointing the finger or anything, but how can we communicate and work together on something that may happen at one of our schools, or be it a department store or wherever, if we're not all on the same page? So I'm deviating from my closing a little bit there, but that's my intent here. Even the Sheriff Association says in their letter they sent to the deal, additional training-related legislation they're in favor of: curriculum, mandatory hours, and joint response training. That's their own letter that they said, and that's what I'm trying to do to make sure they're all on the same page. But I can tell you on that day, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. They didn't. There was just no communication. And that's the biggest thing of this, if they're working together and they're meeting together, the meetings that they're required, 2 meetings are already required each year under House Bill 3. Sheriffs have to have 2 meetings together. So 3 of the meetings in here are already covered under that meeting. The third meeting would be where they go out and do a joint training. And maybe it's a tabletop, maybe it's out in the field or whatever, but it's just so they're all on the same page and know how each other are gonna act. That way, when they put up that scene, if that person is not responding the way he should, then the next agency that's there says, look, I'm taking charge, I'm taking over. And that's what we didn't see that day, and that's what I'm trying to bring forward, that they work together. But now I'll read my closing, now that I've got off my soapbox, so. Chairman Heffernan, members of the committee, passing H. Bill 33 will ensure that law enforcement is prepared, our schools are protected, and failures like those we saw at Robb Elementary never happen again. No more excuses, no more passing the buck, no more officers standing around waiting for orders while kids are bleeding in a classroom. HB 33 sets the standard, actual, hands-on, multi-agency drills where police, first responders, and school officials train together. Because when the worst happens, they need to know how to act as one. Twice a year, law enforcement and school leaders will sit in the same room and get on the same page. No silos, no finger pointing, just a plan, just accountability, just results. Because when the call comes in, when every second means life or death, we need officers and agencies that don't freeze, don't hesitate, and sure as hell don't fail. The hesitation and uvality costs lives. If these policies had been in place 3 years ago, maybe, just maybe, those kids would be alive today. We don't know that, but we can't fix the past, but we sure can fix the future. Passing H. Bill 33 isn't just the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do. Let's get it done. So I respectfully ask this bill be reported favorably out of committee. And I'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
Members, any questions? Representative Lauterbach.
Thank you, Representative McLaughlin, for bringing this bill here. And, I think the law enforcement community understands, and I think they accept the challenges that we faced for some time. And bringing it out and forcing everyone to the table on a timely basis, on a regular continuation, is actually part of the goal. So I appreciate the bill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative, thank you. Congratulations on your first bill. Usually it's one not quite so heavy. It's kind of a heavy issue, but you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
All right, if there's no objection, this bill will be left pending. Is there any objection? Okay, the chair hears none. The bill is left pending. Chair lays out House Bill 298 and recognizes Representative Dayala to explain his bill.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Lopez, members. Across the United States, driver's licenses typically serve as the most frequently used form of identification. While currently Texas law does not require driver's licenses to include citizenship, it includes address, name, and that type of information, date of birth. Several states provide enhanced driver's license. At least 5 states provide enhanced driver's license, which provides for citizenship on your driver's license. At last count, at least 15 countries in their driver's license or state IDs also provide citizenship of that country on their driver's license or state or national ID. In this bill, it's very simple. It's adding citizenship on a Texas driver's license or state ID. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's a relatively low lift. The fiscal note, there is none because the DMV already has this information. It is a programming change and it is a design change to just put that indication on your driver's license. Like I said, this is an easy lift. We're not adding a whole lot of bureaucracy or labor or anything else associated with it. We already have the Real ID Act, where now our state IDs are more reliable and trustworthy and less prone to forgery, corruption, that sort of thing. What this bill does is take our ID to the next level and to make it more efficient for us to use our IDs for certain other things. It helps law enforcement, it helps for employment, it helps for instances and areas where you might need a social security card, a birth certificate, or something like that. To just have this on your one ID you carry around with you every day. I kind of think of it a little bit as a Doge type of bill because it screams efficiency. As you know, there are IDs in the state of Texas. Our driver's license, if you are a permanent resident, you're here from Canada for 30 years, you plan to die here, you're just not a citizen, your driver's license looks exactly like another driver's license of a citizen. This isn't to delineate between different legal status. This is just simply an easy lift that makes it easier and more convenient for the vast majority of the folks living in this country, in this state, to utilize this ID in everyday life. So that's the bill. Everyone starts out with a simple bill. This is a simple bill. This one is relatively simple. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Representative Isaac?
Yeah, do you believe this would help election administrators as well?
This is not an election bill. This is not change any election laws or anything like that. Okay. But you know, it can't hurt. It's helpful, but this isn't an election law or an election bill. It doesn't change the code in that respect.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward. I think the more documentation we have available to us to prove who we are, what we're doing, and all that kind of stuff, especially if what we're doing is safe and legal, I think it's a great thing to have. I'm just curious. I took a look at my wallet just a second ago to look at my driver's license. Mine does not expire. I know I've had it at least a couple of years since I renewed it, maybe even longer. It doesn't expire until 2030. So while I know that there's not a fiscal note, I guess there's no requirement for me to go get that put on there?
No, this will be in the regular course of renewal of your driver's license. This will be in place.
Okay, all right.
We're not going to get a mad rush to the DMV for everyone to have to trade in their driver's
well,
license.
when you said that there was no fiscal note, I figured that because it would be doing the regular course of renewal. But what is the, if you know off the top of your head, what is the typical term of a driver's license? It's got to be at least 10 years, isn't it?
Excellent question. We might have a resource witness on that. My guess is it's 6 years. I think it's 6 years, I believe. And someone will correct me, and please feel free to do so.
Just out of curiosity. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Representative Holt.
Hi, thank you. I agree with this bill, and I think it's a good thing, but how would it be manifest? Would it be, do you have any idea of how what it would look like on the driver's license itself?
They're not going to let me have a role in the design process, just like I can't do my kitchen at home or anything like that.
That's probably a good thing.
But I think they'll just do it. Look, there's real estate on the driver's license. We again will allow those who know that real estate best at the DMV in their design to make sure that it's noted somewhere.
And it won't say if you're a resident of another country or anything. It'll just say that you're a U.S. citizen, correct?
Yeah, this is just to show citizenship.
Okay.
It's not to prove a negative. It's just to show citizenship.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Members, any other questions?
Yeah, one.
Representative Louderback.
Representative, do you have some resource witnesses coming?
I believe maybe. I think so.
About your, I'm curious about on the back end where some of the data is coming from, but maybe we can cover that with maybe your resource witness.
Well, I can add to, I can explain some of that.
Okay.
Most of the voter registration happens at DPS and at the driver license department. And so that data, that information is already there. That's why this is a relatively low lift, is because it's already there. They're not reinventing the wheel or requiring new things. So, and I think they can add to that.
I think we do have a resource witness coming up. Members, any other questions before we go into testimony? All right, we'll reserve the right to close. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
All righty. Chair calls Omar Villarreal Texas Department of Public Safety. Okay. Major, thank you for being here. We show you registered as Omar Villarreal, testifying on behalf of the Texas Department of Public Safety, testifying neutral. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right. Proceed.
Available for y'all as a resource witness, any questions y'all have for our agency.
Representative Louderback.
Thank you, Major. Appreciate what you do. So is this based on the application itself? Is there any federal government, because we're checking status, we got a lot of information going on there. So can you highlight any of these areas about where this information is coming from?
Well, at present, when it comes to our licensing and identification card issuance, those persons who are lawfully in the country, utilizing a student visa, work visa, et cetera, can obtain and test for a license provided they provide that documentation. So we verify that at our offices. Somebody who obtains that license or identification card, on the top of it, it will have a limited term identification on there, and the term of that license or ID card is only valid for the period of that visa, their lawful period in the country. If it's either 1 year or the term of the visa, and every time that they renew, they have to renew in person at our license offices. And once again, all that documentation would have to be presented again. So there is a method to identify that somebody is not a citizen of the United States if they've gone through that process.
Understood. So if you have a green card today, you qualify for a Texas driver license, but you're still a guest in this country. There's no citizenship there. So that would...
When you reference a green card, you're referencing a permanent resident card.
Permanent resident card, yeah.
So that is not a limited term. It's a permanent status, so that individual would not have that limited term on there. It would be, as was asked earlier, it's an 8-year term that your license is good for. So that permanent resident would be available to have that license for a period of 8 years.
Got it.
Representative Isaac.
So as of right now, there is no way to identify a permanent residence from a U.S. citizen card. Is that correct?
A permanent residence issued a social security number. There's no way to differentiate on that card.
Okay. Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Ready? Major, thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
All right, Chair calls Andrew Hendrickson. We show you registered as Andrew Hendrickson, testifying on behalf of the ACLU of Texas, and you're against the bill, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, please proceed.
I do wanted to say, this will be pretty brief because I think we have a very finite concern here, and that is we actually think this will cause confusion for election workers presenting ID. If you become a naturalized citizen, you are not required to go get a new ID. There will be this period of a number of years where many people will have gotten their IDs renewed. The majority of citizens will have that citizenship marker on their license, but we think 8 years out from that 2026 date, starting in September of 2026 or January 2026, the following election 8 years later, you're going to start to see lots of people showing up with citizenship markers on their licenses. And the problem you're going to have there is that election workers may become confused that that is required for an ID. Voter ID laws allow a license that's been expired up to 4 years to be used to identify the voter. We think there's a very significant risk that as we start to see these more and more, and it becomes more and more common as people get their licenses renewed, that will become the basis of challenges at the polls, of people trying to push false narratives about non-citizen voting, and that risk is unnecessary because we really only issue licenses to 5 groups of people, citizens, legal permanent residents, asylees, refugees, and U.S. nationals. there are very few things you actually need to prove citizenship for that you wouldn't qualify for if you were in one of those categories already and a legal permanent resident. You can work, you can be, you have a large number of the rights that are conferred to citizens. You can't vote, but you wouldn't necessarily have the citizenship marker on your ID at the moment that you became eligible to vote. It would only go under. So if you're a legal permanent resident, you become a naturalized citizen, you obtain the right to vote. You don't have to go get a new license until your license expires. But if you don't have that citizenship marker on, we believe it could cause confusion at the polls, unnecessary challenges, and actually lead to people having their votes not counted. So that's our concern and the reason we oppose the bill.
All right, members, Representative DeRazio.
And Rona, thank you for testifying. And my question to you is, you mentioned significant risk. I mean, what's the risk of putting citizenship on the upper corner of the driver's license, and how could that be confusing to an election worker?
Well, I think someone seeing that who is a poll watcher, partisan poll watcher, or someone who is, not as well trained as they should be, perhaps, might think that citizenship marker is required for that ID to count, especially as we see farther into the future that become the norm for citizens, because most voters who have to be citizens would have that marker, but there will be a number of voters who either haven't gotten their ID renewed in that 8-year period from 2026 on who won't have it. And then especially after that period ends, then you have the problem of the naturalized citizen who's still using the license that they were issued when they were a legal permanent resident. They become a citizen, then they are eligible to vote at that point, but they won't have the marker on their ID. And so when they go to show that ID, the concern is that someone would think that marker is required and that was evidence that a non-citizen was voting, when in reality, it's simply a naturalized citizen that is voting. I think that concern for us largely grows out of the fact that we also have seen issues with naturalized citizens being purged from the voter rolls a few years back based on DPS data. We have seen problems arise out of this attempt to put citizenship data out there that is not accurate, up to date, and this license would be of a naturalized citizen would be another marker where the ID hasn't been updated yet, but the person has in fact gained the right to vote by becoming a citizen.
Have you personally witnessed any of this kind of stuff happening?
Well, I mean, no, because the citizenship marker is not on the ID currently.
I mean, because there seems to me to be some conjecture here on what we think it might be, and it could happen this way or that way. And it just builds a cloud over something that, from what you're saying, it just builds a cloud over something that likely will not happen.
I can understand that perspective. I think our perspective is that we have seen a large-scale push, whether it was the voter purge when Secretary Whitley was at the Secretary of State's office, whether it has been, false narratives that we have seen in the press.
We're talking driver's license, not voter purge.
I
mean, because the voter purge, the record, I mean, there was 1 million voters that were dead or whatever, and they were purged from the list, and that needs to be done. But we're talking about a citizenship on a driver's license.
Well, the voter purge I'm talking about was the voter purge in 2021 that turned out to be almost entirely naturalized citizens. Almost every name purged from the list was a naturalized citizen, and what they were relying on was old citizenship data gathered by TPS before the person had become a naturalized citizen, and Secretary Whitley improperly purged thousands and thousands of voters from the rolls. My point there, though, and bringing that into this conversation, is that there has been efforts to, overzealous efforts to weed out non-citizen voting, which there's very little evidence occurs in any significant quantity. Yes, seriously. But yeah, so I think the concern there is that an overzealous push to attempt to weed out non-citizen voters could lead to someone who is a recently naturalized citizen who doesn't have this marker on their ID having their and is validly registered to vote, not being allowed to vote because they have shown an ID that doesn't denote that they're a citizen, even though they are.
Okay, but you keep going to the voter route, and I'm staying with the driver's license. It's two completely separate issues, and you keep going back to voters, and I'm trying to figure out.
I do, because the majority of voters use their driver's license as their voter ID.
Well, when we were not poll watching, when I was an election judge, we made them use several, if they had the voter card, the driver's license or any other kind of identification. Whenever they would come in without a driver's license or any kind of identification, that would put a flag up. But going back to the citizenship member on the driver's license, you keep going to the voter registration, and then you go to the purging. I really would like to know where your information is coming from and how accurate it is, and what studies. That's basically it.
I understand what you're saying. I'm saying, yes, of course, ours is a concern with the hypothetical, because we don't have a system right now that has this marker on your ID. So we don't know how it would play out. The point that I think we're trying to make is that, that there is a potential problem here, and we don't see a ton of benefit from having this added to the driver's license. But we do see a potential serious problem for folks having their voting rights suppressed.
All right, well, I appreciate that, but as a driver's license come out with the citizenship on it, the first million or 2 million or whatever that is the beta test, and that would be able to tell you whether there's going to be a problem or not. And I don't see a problem with it. But I appreciate your testimony and explaining it the way you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative McLaughlin?
Question for you, twofold, but a poll watcher has to take training before he's a poll watcher, does he not?
Correct.
Doesn't an election worker have to take training before they do?
Correct.
So if they're instructed in their training that this, as he said, this makes no election deal, and you're instructed in that training to tell you that whether that symbol's on your driver's license or not is irregardless, wouldn't that solve the problem?
It should, and I'm concerned that it won't.
Okay.
Representative Pearson?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here, Mr. Hendrickson. I just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. When you become a naturalized citizen, are you saying the bill prohibits that person from obtaining a new driver's license or ID?
No, but a person wouldn't be required to obtain a new driver's license or ID until their current driver's license expired. So the same problem that we were discussing, where no one's required right now to go and turn in their license that currently to get a new one, if this bill passes, it simply will be on the next driver's license that they're issued if they're a U.S. citizen. That will become true of anyone who is naturalized and becomes a U.S. citizen after that period has run, where everyone will have been 8 years from the effective date of when that marker would be added to licenses, where the only folks who wouldn't have the citizenship marker would be recently naturalized citizens who were still using the ID that they were issued when they were when they were a legal permanent resident.
So they could go ahead and get a new one, is what I'm asking.
They could.
And if it were required, would that solve your concerns?
I think it's an unnecessary burden to put on people, but
But that would resolve your concerns?
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? All right. Thank you for being here, Andrew.
Thank you.
Appreciate your testimony. Chair calls Daniel Woodward. We show you registered as Daniel Woodward, testifying on behalf of Texas Civil Rights Project, and you're against the bill. Is that correct?
That's right. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair Hefner, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. We're testifying in opposition. I was going to come up here and make many of the same points that the last witness just made. I'm not going to reiterate that. I think everybody understood. I do just want to flag that driver's licenses are very public documents. We have to show them when we do things like go to concerts, buy alcohol, open bank accounts, rent cars, a lot of times if we're trying to rent a house. And putting marker of citizenship status, especially in a time when there's so much vitriol against immigrants, opens people up to opportunity for private discrimination as well. And that might not be a huge concern if there was a great benefit to this bill, but I'm just having a lot of trouble seeing what problem this bill solves. Because the DPS already has a rigorous process to ensure undocumented people or people who do not have valid immigration status do not get driver's licenses. The Secretary of State has rigorous procedures to make sure non-citizens cannot vote. And legal permanent residents are often eligible for most of the benefits like unemployment and other state administered benefits as citizens in most cases. So having this on the driver's license doesn't actually make anything more efficient that I can see. So those are the problems that we see with this bill. I just don't see that the benefit to it really outweighs any harms that the last witness identified or that I identified today. Thanks for the time.
Members, any questions for this witness? All righty, we appreciate your testimony. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Chair calls Eamon Blair. I got your name right this time, didn't I, Eamon?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all right. Someone called me out yesterday as Hammond, so
Okay.
it's all right.
So we show you registered as Eamon Blair, testifying on behalf of Texas Public Policy Foundation for the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Please proceed.
I'm here today to testify in support of this bill, legislation that will directly strengthen law enforcement operations, protect Texas communities, and uphold the rule of law by requiring the Texas driver's licenses and personal identification certificates indicate whether the holder is a U.S. citizen. As a former Border Patrol agent in the Rio Grande Valley sector, I spent years combating human smuggling, fraudulent identification schemes, and organized criminal activity. I have personally processed individuals who claim to be U.S. citizens, but were not, who falsified family relationships to bypass enforcement, and who carried counterfeit Texas driver's licenses produced by cartels to blend into American society undetected. I've seen how Texas' lack of clear citizenship designation on its most widely used identification document allows criminal networks to manipulate the system. This is not about racial discrimination. It is about ensuring that law enforcement officers can do their jobs effectively, that criminals cannot exploit our institutions, and that Texas upholds the rule of law. Citizenship is a fundamental legal status, one that determines eligibility for certain public benefits and enforcement jurisdiction in both state and federal cases. And that status, if that status is relevant in so many aspects of government, why should it be absent from the very document designed to verify identity? Texas' current system does not really allow officers to immediately confirm whether the individual is a U.S. citizen or not. And without a citizenship designation on an ID, an officer must either take the person's word for it when they are detained, say like in a traffic stop, or if there is reasonable suspicion, initiate a process that can involve federal agents, such as myself before as a Border Patrol agent, inquire through the Law Enforcement Support Center in Vermont. It's a 24/7 call center that they can call, either do an NCIC check, and then once again check through the LSC in Vermont. All of these steps, all they do is introduce more delays, waste resources, and then hinder enforcement efforts. Federal courts have long recognized the authority of state law enforcement officers to make arrests for violations of federal law, including immigration violations. In the 10th Circuit in United States versus Salinas Calderon, it affirmed that a state trooper has general investigatory authority to inquire into possible immigration violations. Furthermore, Congress has explicitly encouraged state cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. In 1996, Congress amended the Immigration and Nationality Act to clarify that law enforcement officers may cooperate with the Attorney General and now DHS Secretary in the identification, apprehension, detention, or removal of aliens not lawfully present in the United States. HB 298 aligns with both congressional intent and judicial precedent. It is not preempted by federal law, and it strengthens Texas' ability to uphold the rule of law. Thank you for your time.
Representative Lauterbach.
Eamon, would this be probably one of the most important things for law enforcement right now?
100%, sir, especially since most law enforcement, as you're a big advocate for 287G program, most law enforcement currently are not. And so without that, that tool that they have, this is another tool that can be utilized and just bypass all that bureaucracy of of getting a hold of like a Border Patrol agent or someone that has the authority to check that status.
So in a time frame where we just went through 4 years of some of the most horrendous policies that we've ever seen in this country, would this be extremely critical as far as working cartel issues?
100%. As I mentioned earlier, we see it all the time, almost a daily basis. Fraudulent documents from the Mexican cartels, utilizing whether that's going to be Texas driver's licenses, whether that's going to be birth certificates, all forms of identification to identify whether they're a citizen of this country or another country.
Is it fair to say that we have a fraudulent ID situation here in our state that's, in fact, every state, that is unprecedented?
Unprecedented, sir.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thanks for your testimony. I think there's a lot of points that are being made of why this could be or should be or might be beneficial. Help me understand something, help me feel better about a situation. Looking the way that I do, someone might consider me not automatically an American citizen if they don't hear me speak, if they don't see any identification. How can someone like myself feel comfortable between now and 2030, when my driver's license is going to have to be renewed, that I'm not going to get pulled over, assumed not to be an American citizen, and deported? Help me feel better about that situation.
That's a great question. Thank you, sir. So it's all based off of articulable facts. So a law enforcement officer, under whether that's going to be 287G program, whether that's going to be Operation Stone Garden on the border, we only arrest or detain based off of articulable facts. For a law enforcement officer, that's typically whether you made some infraction on the like a traffic or penal code. So there are already laws on the books in Texas Penal Code that forbids that action. So really, this is not about race. This is all about citizenship and nationality. As you know, sir, throughout the last 4 years, we've had over 170 different nationalities come through our border. It has nothing to do with what color of skin you have, or what ethnic background. It has everything to do with that citizenship status and nothing more.
Well, once again, between now and 2030, when my driver's license will have the citizenship designation on it, while I do believe that the vast majority of our police officers and folks that are out in the public administering safety will understand and know what their responsibilities are, what their rights are, what the rights of the individual are. There could be someone that are out there that are a little zealous. What you're telling me is I shouldn't worry about that. And the reality is, if you were in my skin, you would worry about it. And I guess that's the only point that I want to make, is that there is anxiety about doing these kinds of things. I would hope that while you may not agree with it, that you at least acknowledge it.
Yes, sir. I mean, not every officer is there to, I mean, they've sworn an oath just like I did, but there's gaps. And of course, there's people that have different ideologies than you or I have. And so to protect it, that's why there's Texas Penal Code that prohibits racial profiling under the 287G program. There's also code in violations if they do also do racial profiling, which is overseen by ICE. So there are both on the federal side and on the state side. If it comes to the point where you as a subject make the claim that, hey, this was all based off of racial profiling, you had no articulable facts to either determine probable cause or reasonable suspicion, that is on then the law enforcement to then go forth and say, hey, these were the facts. The burden is on that law enforcement officer.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here, Eamon. And I just want to kind of delineate a difference between Texas and Wyoming. Based on your testimony, it seems like this would be critically important for a state like Texas to do just that for all the reasons that you've stated. Would you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure.
All right, members, any other questions? All right, Eamon, thank you for being here.
All right, thank y'all.
All right, is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 298? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Diallo to close on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman Lopez, members, thank you for this opportunity to lay out this bill. I want to go to one of the questions you asked, not to me, but I'm going to try to answer it anyway. It's kind of odd because you all know me as Mono, but the author of this bill is Emilio Fernando de Ayala. And so someone who became a citizen upon birth, and 6 years later, my parents became citizens. So citizenship is something that is, in my family, obtained in a way that's probably different than most folks in the House of Representatives, the state of Texas. So I appreciate your comments on that. I do want to say one other thing. This does not change any election laws. No election, this is not an election bill. The same IDs, the same proof that's required in elections remain, and this doesn't change that. This only enhances and makes better for the reasons stated below. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I ask that the committee look favorably on this bill. Thank you.
All right. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. House Bill 298 is left pending. All right, Chair lays out House Bill 1261 and recognizes Representative Cunningham to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Hefner. I want to say good afternoon to all the other committee members here. And once again, thank you. Current Texas law requires local law enforcement agencies to publish notices of unclaimed or seized property in the paper of general circulation. This provision of the Code of Criminal Procedure was established when newspapers were more widely read and physically distributed. That is no longer the case today, as most people view the news either on their phones or on the internet. Law enforcement officers have expressed concerns over both the cost of publishing notices and the cost of building portable buildings to hold this unclaimed or seized property. As a result, I filed HB 1261 to alleviate these concerns and to allow law enforcement the ability to post these notices of seized or unclaimed property on the internet and social network websites utilized by law enforcement agencies. Since 1963, Texas has required institutions, businesses, government entities to report to the state any personal property, usually financial assets, that have been unclaimed for up to 5 years, and depending on the property in question. The Texas Comptroller's Office manages unclaimed property under Title VI of the Texas Property Code, commonly known as claimittexas.gov. Texans can search their name on the controller's website and see if they have any unclaimed property, something that has been done since the year 2000. I need to repeat that. The controller's office has been doing this since the year 2000. So the precedents for this legislation already exist. Mr. Chairman, members, I reserve the right to close. I think we might have some witnesses here to testify.
Members, any questions? All right, we'll move to testimony. Chair calls Bill Patterson. Okay. All righty. So Bill Patterson no longer here. Chair calls Donis Baggett. Did I say that name right?
Yes, sir, you did.
All right. We show you registered as Donis Baggett, testifying on behalf of the Texas Press Association and yourself, and you're against the bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members. Appreciate your opportunity to be here today and speak out against HB 1261. I take issue with the assertion that people don't read newspapers anymore. They read them very regularly, and there are more people reading newspaper content now than at any time in our history as an industry. They just aren't reading the print edition as much as they used to. The print edition, though, is the permanent, archivable, unalterable, unhackable proof that a final effort to give notice to someone that their property is being seized or has been seized and that it will be sold. It's a last-ditch effort to try to get them to come forward and do something about this. Now, the reason that these notices exist is not for the convenience of the agency or the individual or whoever is required to place them. It's for the fundamental right of a Texan to be notified if their property is about to be taken against their will and sold without their knowledge. That is a fundamental right, like the right to life and liberty. It's part of the pursuit of happiness, and Texans take that seriously. Newspapers do too, and so when we distribute a public notice, we do it in print, we do it on the website of that newspaper, we do it on the Texas Press Association, which I work for, on our aggregated website, and we will even do push email notifications to anyone who is asked to see a certain type of notice. You'll get it in your email as soon as that notice is filed. So we are very much following technology. All of that technology end of it is provided at no extra cost, and the website notices are outside the paywall, so the reader doesn't even have to buy a newspaper to see them. So we're doing everything in our power and will continue to do so to make sure that people get these important last chance notices. And I would ask that you give serious consideration to that factor when you consider this bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions for the witness? Representative Louderback.
Mr. Bagley, thanks for testifying. What's the requirement? Is it one time, two times? What is it now?
I'm not a lawyer, but the way I read the bill, it says it has to be.
What is it currently?
The current?
Yeah, currently.
Current law, the bill that you're looking at here calls for a notice when it's announcing that this has been seized and it will be sold within 90 days, I believe it is, if it's not claimed. And then there is a second notice required when that auction is scheduled for that, assuming the person doesn't come forward and claim it.
So we have two times?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
So versus social media, which is 24/7.
Well, but so is our social media and our website. It's 24/7 too. It's in print two times, but it's up there.
So if we just knock out the print part, you'd be satisfied?
No, sir, because we got to pay the
You've
bills.
already got social media covered.
Yes, sir, but part of the stuff that covers social media is the money we make off of print, off of charging.
about
And
money?
we're not just selling print, we're selling a package.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Hicklin.
Is there a fee associated with these notices in the papers?
Yes, ma'am. For most papers, it's somewhere around $20 to $50.
Okay.
What do you do if there's not a printed paper in a county or a city?
If there's not a printed paper in the county or city, in most cases, the adjacent county will have one and they'll run in that county. The theory behind these things is this: if the person has skipped the country or they're deployed overseas or whatever the case may be, then maybe their mother, their aunt, or somebody might happen across one of these, and then they can notify that person or as a family member take care of the problem.
Members, any other questions? Mr. Beck, thank you for your.
Just a real quick question.
Vice Chair Lopez.
I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
not sure that you'll be able to answer it. I mean, you said earlier, I'm not an attorney, therefore I can't answer that question. This may be more of a legal question, but, so what happens if, there's property has been announced, this law goes into effect, it wasn't necessarily put into the newspaper for the reasons that are being discussed here, and all of a sudden it gets sold, and then I find out about it and it was my property, and now I want to claim it. Is there any recourse?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Baggett. Thank you for your
Thank
testimony.
you.
Chair calls Reed Piliphant. Okay. So Mr. Piliphant had to leave. All right. Chair calls Sarah Wilson. We show you registered as Sarah Wilson, testifying on behalf of Texas Association of Property and Evidence Technicians and yourself, and you're for the bill.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Wilson, and I am an Evidence and Forensic Supervisor with the Seguin Police Department. I am honored to present here today in support of House Bill 1261 and share insights from my extensive experience in the field of evidence management. I have dedicated over 24 years to the meticulous work of identifying, collecting, and preserving property and evidence. My career in law enforcement has equipped me with a deep understanding of the complexities and challenges associated with evidence management. Additionally, I am privileged to serve as the second vice president for the Texas Association of Property and Evidence Inventory Technicians. That is a mouthful, so it is called TAPIT. TAPIT has been a cornerstone in the field of evidence management in Texas for the past 26 years. Our organization is committed to promoting professional education and establishing laws, rules, and guidelines that uphold the integrity and chain of custody of property and evidence. We understand that maintaining these standards is crucial for ensuring justice and public trust. We have had individuals from over 330 agencies attend our conferences with over 500 individuals in attendance each year. Another key focus for TAPIT has been to streamline the disposal of property and evidence. Our property and evidence rooms across the state of Texas are growing. We don't have the room. By developing and advocating for efficient processes, we aim to alleviate the burden on law enforcement agencies and ensure that evidence management is both effective and efficient. In today's fast-paced digital world, the methods of placing an ad in a newspaper or sending a certified letter have become outdated. These traditional forms of communication are not only time-consuming, but also lack the efficiency and reach that modern technology offers. Paper-printed newspapers have a declining readership, reducing the potential audience for any advertisement. The process of drafting, submitting, and publishing an ad is time-consuming for that law enforcement agency. I just lost my spot, sorry. Print ads are expensive, especially when compared to digital alternatives. Certified letters take several days, and communication can be delayed. This is also inconvenient for the individuals who are receiving the letter. The benefits of the digital process allow for messages to be sent and received instantly, saving time and improving responsiveness. There is a wider reach because online platforms have a global audience, vastly surpassing the reach of traditional newspapers. Costs are reduced, allowing for better budget management. The digital processes also eliminate the need for paper, contributing to environmental conservation. Modernizing communication supports sustainable business practices. In conclusion, I urge the committee to consider the advantages of this digital communication and vote in favor of modernizing these outdated processes. This shift will not only improve operational efficiency, but also align with the needs and expectations of today's society. Let us take this step forward and embrace the future of communication. Thank you.
All right, members, any questions?
Yeah.
Vice Chair
Yes,
Lopez.
sir.
Okay, probably I should have waited with my question for you.
No, you're good.
So like, when this happens, it's just informational on my part, so is there any recourse for the owner of that property to claim if gone through every reasonable effort to let the public know, nobody seems to claim it, it gets sold, and then they realize, oh my God, that was my diamond ring, or that was my vehicle, or whatever. Do they have any recourse? I mean,
So through the Code of Criminal
what's their rights?
Procedure, the law enforcement agency or the holding agency of that property would make notification And we would make notification if it's less than $500 through a certified letter to the known owner of that property.
there you
So we'd reach out to that known owner. If there is no known owner, then we would publish, or we would seek out an ad in the newspaper and publish that in the newspaper. The other issue with that is the owner would have no idea possibly what agency has it, does not know what day it may be placed in that newspaper, doesn't know, potentially what to research. So like
But there is an onus on the police department to or to whoever has the property to notify whoever if they happen to know who it is. And oftentimes, if it's a very valuable item, it more than likely might have been covered by insurance or who knows what. There may or may not be interest from the actual original owner. Is that?
The CCP just says $500 or more is when we
so
have
that's
to
the
post it in the
$500 threshold.
paper. If it's anything less than that, then it does not have to be posted in the paper.
Right. Well, because I recall, I was fortunate enough to sit on the city council in San Antonio, and we had a long discussion with our folks from our police department that manage the property division, and there was a significant amount of concern around the amount of inventory that they had. So once that property and so they were selling a lot of it, then the money gets collected and put into some sort of an escrow. What happens to that?
So the money goes to the city of, and I can't speak on everyone. I just know for me personally, so I work for the city of Seguin Police Department. And so
So it goes to the city's police department or to the city's general budget?
The city of Seguin's
Okay,
general
now,
budget.
now I can see different constituencies arguing for it against this thing. But anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, members, any other questions for this witness? All righty. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Chair calls Justin Sosa. We show you registered as Justin Souza, testifying on behalf of the Alamo Area Police Chiefs and yourself, and you're for the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All righty, please proceed.
So good afternoon, Chairman and committee. My name is Justin Souza. I currently serve as the police chief of Hondo, Texas. I did not originally work on this bill. I was the other day happening going through bills and stumbled upon this. And this is one of the big issues that was brought to me by my evidence technician. So like we had talked about with the certified letters, that is a thing that's causing a lot of issues within departments throughout the state, mostly because of bad addresses. So let's say we bring in a bicycle, and we know that bicycle belongs to John Smith, and we know that John Smith is a person that frequents our town but doesn't really live anywhere. But when we go into our report management system, John Smith has a previously listed address. So the way the statute is currently written, we're required to send John a certified letter. If my officers were to find John 4 days later and say, hey, your bicycle's at the police department, come get it, that does not satisfy this law alone if he doesn't come get the property. We would have to still send that certified letter. And again, we know that certified letter is not gonna make it to John. And we're just literally paying a fee for a certified letter for no reason whatsoever. Additionally, in posting things on the internet in regard to the lost property of a value of over $500. Let's use a cell phone, for example. In Hondo, we're a transient community. A lot of people come through, go into the river, so on and so forth. So in the event that somebody loses a cell phone at one of my gas stations and they don't know where they lost it between Houston and the Frio, they would have to then go search every newspaper between here and there and have to hit it on the specific date that we actually do put that in the newspaper. So where that becomes very difficult is, one thing that we'll do is we would wait till we get a certain amount of items to actually be able to afford to post this article in the newspaper, and that person would never have an opportunity to see that stuff. And just because they're not from our area and just the way they're traveling through, it makes it very difficult for them. And so those are the more real world explanations. And I just feel really strongly about this, and talking to a bunch of different chief friends and sheriff friends of mine, that we feel that this is a really easy solution to solve a really big problem, to get a lot of abandoned property out of our property rooms. Also making it a lot easier for people to reclaim their property as a whole, because as you know, right now we can grab our cell phone and do anything that we would want on it. So I think it's important, if we have that information, that person would have more opportunities to look for that information on my website or my social media in lieu of trying to go track down a paper in a city that they don't know that they should be looking in. Thank you all very much and ask you to support this bill. Anybody have any questions?
Members, any questions? All righty. Thank you for being here. All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on, for, or against House Bill 1261? If not, Chair recognizes Representative Cunningham to close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say, last session, this bill passed out of Homeland Security and passed the floor, died in the Senate. But I'll end by saying this. The Comptroller's Office already posts unclaimed property online. Let's allow our law and our local law enforcement agencies to do the same. I request that the bill be sent to local and consent calendars. Mr. Chairman, I close.
Members, any questions? All right. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The bill is left pending.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr.
Thank you,
Cunningham.
members.
All right. Chair lays out House Bill 1234 and recognizes Chairman Ginn to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, when Texans apply for a license to carry a handgun, they go through a thorough review process to ensure they meet all legal and safety requirements. Part of that process includes a question about whether the applicant has ever received psychiatric counseling. While it's important to ensure that those who carry a handgun are responsible and capable, the current system does not always provide applicants with a fair chance to explain their circumstances before a denial is issued. This issue was brought to us by a constituent who works in a high-stress profession where routine psychiatric counseling is mandated. When he applied for his license to carry, he truthfully checked the box indicating that he had received counseling. However, instead of considering the context of his counseling, DPS consulted the Medical Advisory Board, which advised them not to issue the license. The Medical Advisory Board never reached out to the applicant to ask why he had received counseling, nor did they allow him to provide any evidence regarding his mental fitness. He was simply denied, with no opportunity to explain or appeal before the decision was made. So HB 1234 addresses this problem by ensuring that before a license is denied, based on a recommendation from the Medical Advisory Board, the applicant must first be given a written explanation of the reason for the denial. The applicant will then have at least 30 days to submit additional information or evidence clarifying their circumstances. Once submitted, this information will be reviewed by the same Medical Advisory Board that made the initial recommendation. The board will then reconsider its position and provide an updated report before a final decision is made by DPS. The bill does not change the eligibility requirements for obtaining a handgun license, nor does it interfere with the role of the Medical Advisory Board. It simply ensures that applicants are given a fair chance to provide relevant information before a decision is made that affects their rights. Members, HB 1234 is about fairness and due process. Texans who follow the law and meet all necessary qualifications should not have their Second Amendment rights restricted without a clear explanation and an opportunity to address any concerns. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Representative Louderback.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I've taught back still an active certified instructor for LTC since 1995, and this is still a larger group of people than what you can think that's affected by this. So I appreciate the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? All right, we'll reserve your right to close. Chair calls Gary Zimmerman. I haven't seen Gary in a little while. Gary Zimmerman. He was shown for the bill, but he's not here. All right. Chair calls Emily Taylor. We show you registered as Emily Taylor on behalf of Gun Owners of America and yourself, and you're for the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All righty, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, committee members. My name is Emily Taylor. I am here on behalf of Gun Owners of America, also on behalf of myself to testify for this bill. In addition to Gun Owners of America's strong support for this, I am an attorney in private practice. My private practice is solely firearms, self-defense related issues, including appeals for persons who have been denied their LTC. What tends to happen in this situation is that there are disqualifiers for mental health reasons to get your LTC. They are conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, intermittent explosive disorder. What the DPS tends to do is ask overly broad questions soliciting other issues people might have. Well, I was treated for anxiety. I was treated for depression. At that point, that application may go to the medical advisory board, who will generally rubber stamp a denial, forcing the person who is in fact qualified to receive that handgun license to take their denial, hire a lawyer, and appeal the denial. This is good law. It reins in a little bit of the DPS overreach that we see year on year.
Members, any questions for the witness? All righty. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
All right, is there anyone else wishing to testify on, oh, Gary showed up, okay. Chair calls, you're good. Chair calls Gary Zimmerman. We show you registered as Gary Zimmerman, testifying on behalf of yourself for the bill, is that correct?
That is correct.
All righty, please proceed.
I'm all in support of this bill. I actually have attention deficit disorder, otherwise known as ADD. Now, while Texas didn't give me any issues about this, as in a previous committee hearing, I do have 14 licenses from other states. There were a couple of those other states that wanted to give me slack over my ADD. So I like what this does in case the DPS in Texas wants to go off on a hair with people with ADD from some new study or whatever. My only concern with this bill is if I provide this additional information to DPS, is DPS just going to ignore it, and what recourse do I have? Now, Emily's law firm said I would have some additional recourse in filing an appeal and everything, and that makes me feel better. But I am in support of this bill, because I do have ADD. Some people look at it as like, how in the world can you be a paramedic, or how in the world can you be an instructor if you're an ADD person? Well, we can, and some of us are very good at it and have been very good at it. So I fully support this bill. Thank you.
Members, any questions? All righty, Gary, thank you for being here. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1234? If not, Chair recognizes Chairman again to close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no further questions, I close and ask for your favorable consideration.
All right, members, any questions? All righty. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none. The bill is left pending. This is the last bill? All right, this is the last bill of the day. Chair lays out House Bill 1696 by Representative Canales. All right, members, in lieu of Representative Canales' absence, the chair lays out House Bill 1696, and I guess I recognize myself to lay the bill out for him. Currently, Texans with a license to carry must carry their LTC and driver's licenses when carrying a firearm. If asked by a law enforcement official, they must present both documents to remain in compliance with the law. This dual document system is not only redundant for Texas citizens, but also an unnecessary administrative burden for law enforcement. House Bill 1696 allows LTC holders to consolidate documents by opting for proof of their LTC to be on their driver's license or their commercial driver's license. This change streamlines interactions with law enforcement, reducing the need for multiple documents and preserving compliance standards. Pretty straightforward bill. Members, do y'all have any questions? All right, we'll move to testimony. Is that the only one? Chair calls Gary Zimmerman. We show you registered as Gary Zimmerman, testifying on behalf of yourself for the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All righty, please
I was
proceed.
under the assumption from Terry Canales' office that he was going to do a substitute bill. Did he not do that?
I haven't seen a substitute at this time.
Okay, I am in support of this bill. Bill was introduced last legislative session, and it didn't get far enough that time. I am in support of this bill, but I was under the impression that Representative Canales was going to add the substitute. I am an instructor, and one of the things I would like to see added to this bill is an LTC-I. As an instructor, we've gone through 3 days, a minimum of 3 days of training just to get our Texas license to carry instructor, in addition to any additional training that we've gone to the DPS and done and got for the other classes that they have. I feel like if we're going to put LTC on our driver's license, then with all of the extra training that I have, we as instructors deserve to have on the driver's license LTC-I or some other significant on the driver's license to let them know that we are an instructor. On our license to carry, it says instructor on it. So it's not just my license to carry when I show it. It'll have the designation instructor on my actual license to carry. So if we're going to do this for our driver's license, we need to also have the designation on our driver's license that we are instructors as well. So I would like to see if somebody add that to it or add a amendment at a later time, because I think we as instructors deserve to have that recognition on our driver's license. We get it on our license to carry, we need it on our driver's license. And I was under the impression that Representative Canales was supposed to put a substitute in on that, but apparently not. But as an instructor, we all deserve recognition for the extra training we have over and above. We got it on our license to carry, why not on our driver's license? But I do support the bill as a whole. Thank you.
All right, members, any questions? Representative Holt.
So I totally get it being on your LTC, your instructor designation, but what would be the purpose of it being on a driver's license?
Same reason. The whole idea behind having it on our driver's license, as Representative Canales says, is to let that police officer know that we have a license to carry. Well, police officers, at least the ones I've talked to and the ones that I actually live next door to a DPS officer, he likes knowing that we're an instructor because that makes him feel a little bit at ease, that we've had more training. We're not just somebody's gotten the basic 4 hours from the Texas License to Carry course, that is we as instructors went down to Florence and got 3 days worth of training.
What would be the reason? Why do you feel like it needs to be combined? Why are you in favor of it?
Because we went through all the extra training.
No, not the just the general bill, not the add-on, but just.
As I frequently have said, I'm also an Illinois licensed carry instructor. And in the state of Illinois, if you live there and have an Illinois driver's license, you don't get a choice, unlike this, which would be an option. They actually combine their license to carry with their Illinois driver's license. So if you lived in Illinois and had a license to carry and had your driver's license, you'd have one card, period. No choice. So I see it as that's the way to go rather than me carrying around two.
So you see it as a convenience thing?
As a convenience, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
And if Illinois is doing it, why not Texas?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, members, any other questions? All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on, for, or against House Bill 1696? All right, if not, Chair's hearing none. So I'll close on the measure. Members, I close. Is there any objection? If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. It's left pending. Whew. Threw me a curve, me recognizing myself to lay out the bill. All right, that's all the business we have before us.
That's the first symptom of schizophrenia.
Yes. I want to thank everybody who came to testify today. That concludes today's business. Is there any other further business or any comments from the members? If not, the chair moves to adjourn at 2:54. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. The committee stands adjourned, subject to the call of the chair.